Uh, yeah, welcome to Lua a Primer. This is a talk that I wish I had when I got started with NeoVim and got started with Lua. This could be called Lua a Beginner's Guide or Lua Getting Started or something. But before we get too deep into that, my name is John McBride. I work on a Linux operating system called BottleRocket. Before that, I was working on some Kubernetes stuff at VMware, Cloud Foundry, at Pivotal, and yeah, been around the block. And this is something I always come back to is NeoVim. I've used a bit of Goland, the IntelliJ stack, VS Code, but yeah, NeoVim seems to be my truest love. So here we are. Recently, I discovered Lua, and I mean, things have changed as people have been talking about. Things have changed so much in the last year or so with Lua and its plugins in NeoVim and just the engine itself within NeoVim and the Lua stuff. So what the heck? What is Lua and why might you care? Well, Lua is a very powerful, very, very small scripting language that is embedded inside of NeoVim. You can almost think of it as a way to change the behavior of something that it's sitting inside. Oftentimes, you'll hear about Lua being embedded in game engines. You know, we don't want to have to go and change a bunch of C code or C++ code in a game engine. Instead, we can just write some really simple code, some Lua, some scripting code, to change that game engine or change that thing, which makes it a great candidate for being embedded inside of NeoVim. Another thing you're going to hear about Lua all the time is, yes, its indexes do start at 1. It's kind of sad, but indexes start at 1 with Lua. That's the big know-how. But this talk is actually mostly a demo, so may the demo gods be with me. We're going to do some live coding in here, and we're going to chat about kind of the very basics. Like, I'm talking the most basics. Again, this is the talk I wish I had when I was getting started with Lua and all the things. So first things first, we'll just say lua.org. That's where you can go get it. Lua.org/download. That's where you can get all the stuff that you will download, get onto your system. You can even get it all yourself and compile it if you so wish. But let's head over to here, and that looks fine. So if I just type Lua, boom, it's going to pull up the interpreter. You might notice this kind of looks like the Python interpreter. I almost like to think of Lua as like Python meets JavaScript meets C, and it exists somewhere kind of gross in the middle, but we can start doing stuff inside here. We can do print hello world. Well, close enough. Had a new line in there, and that's fine. Lua is going to try to do and really grab whatever you give it and just do something with it. It's very, very forgiving, like almost too forgiving sometimes. So be aware of the foot gun there. Some languages, you know, that was a mistake, but it was fine with that new line in there anyways. So it printed hello world for us, and we can Control-C out of there to get back to our command line. So let's talk a quick bit about, let's go back into the interpreter. Let's talk about the data structures that exist within Lua. And it's so simple that it really only has one data structure. And Lua calls that the table. And the table sort of exists in a weird world where it's like an array, it's like a hash map, and you can kind of mix and match things all over the place. So let's just call some variable v, and we're going to do equals, curly brace. Whoops, doesn't like when I use arrow keys. That's fine. A, B, and C. And hit enter there. Okay, that's cool. Let's try to just print that out. And it says, oh, it's a table. It's a memory address. It's just like something I know about. It's a data structure I know about in memory. Okay, that's fine. Let's try to print maybe one of the indexes. So let's do that starting at 1. And that's going to give us A. If we print v2, that's going to give us b, so on and so forth. What's going to happen when we do v0? It's not going to like that, right? Well, it just says nil. It doesn't actually like error out or throw a stack or like throw a panic, maybe like you would in Go or something. It's just going to be like, no, I don't know about that. It's just going to continue on. Again, this is one of those foot guns that you're going to see a lot in Lua, so be very aware. Be very aware of the indexing, and it starts at 1. We get something similar if we do something like way out of bounds, like v99. It's just not going to be there. So let's go deeper. Let's go a little bit deeper. Let's vim hello.lua. A .lua file is going to be a Lua script, something that we can essentially execute. So let's print hello world. And notice up in there that I used single quotes. Let's make that just a little bit bigger. Yeah, that would be fine. Notice that's single quotes. You can use double quotes. You can use single quotes. Kind of JavaScripty, right? It's not really going to care. It's not going to complain at me about single quotes, double quotes, chars versus strings. It just knows that as a string. So let's exit out of there. If you see me typing JK all the time, by the way, that's a remap I have to escape. So I do that all the time. It's almost like I just do it. So let's Lua, hello.lua. Now we're passing this script actually to the Lua interpreter, and boom, it prints hello world. All right, let's clear that screen a little bit. Yes, I do have some notes. That's what I keep looking at. Let's go back over to this Lua script. I'm going to get rid of that. And let's talk about comments. So to tax, that's going to be a single line comment. My LSP, this Sumneko Lua, however you say that, it's going to keep adding those and stuff for me. So that's very nice. Thank you for doing that, NeoVim, with your LSP. We can do some numbers. So let's do num 99. If I save this, it's going to complain about global variables and me not giving this a capital, so I can do something like that. It's going to be okay with that. Typically, global variables, quote unquote, are going to be capitalized. You can almost think of those as being exported out of this script if I was bringing this script into another script. But if we wanted something that was really only scoped to this script, we would say local like that. And it's like, oh, you're not using that. Okay, let's print num. Let's use that. And I'm going to split my window here real quick by the magic of Tmux. Huzzah. So let's now Lua, hello.lua. And we should see that number printed out. Very cool. We can overwrite that. So let's say that's 1 now. Back down here, Lua, hello.lua. And we've effectively overwritten that. So that's another foot gun I like to mention, is that variables they just get overwritten. It's not going to complain about like, oh, you've already declared the name of that variable. No, it doesn't care. It's just going to overwrite it for you. Okay, let's do some other stuff. Let's talk about a string. So let's do prime, Primeagen. I think I spell that. I never know how to spell that. So Primeagen is like that. That's a string. It's just string variable. I am prime. This is going to be a Boolean. I am not the Primeagen, so we're going to call that false. Whoops. And for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to ignore most of these warnings. So be warned, the warnings are ignored. Let's do an if-else block. That's super important to programming, right? If-else. Let's see, let me give myself some space. So if-else is pretty much like you would expect in most other scripting languages. So we can give it some condition here, like if condition, then do something. So our condition can just be this Boolean. So if I am prime, then, and I see that there's a snippet right there that my LSP is giving me, and a bunch of that's some stuff I have configured, kind of behind the curtain sort of things. But after your condition, you're going to have a then and then an end. So inside of there is where we can actually put some other things to do. So let's print, if I am the Primeagen, then I am the Primeagen. And that seems like something I maybe could optimize. Like I see and I notice right here that I actually have prime as a variable. So why don't I get rid of this? And I'm going to use a special operator, the dot operator, to actually concatenate a string. So what we would expect here is I am ... the Primeagen, and it'll just look like a nice, beautiful string that gets printed out. Let's save that. Let's come back down here. Lua, we're going to hello Lua. Oh, it didn't do anything because that variable is false. So it did not enter that condition. So let's assume ourselves as the Primeagen for a hot second. Very cool. So now we would expect this condition to be true. Let's come down here. And boom, it prints that out. It concatenates that string. It's beautiful. It's great. Let's try an else. So we can just throw an else in here. Else if would be like, some other condition or whatever. And then you would throw a then in there and you get this whole block. But let's just do an else to print, something like I, and I'm mixing up my quotes, I am not the, and dot dot prime. Again, footgun with some of the formatting. It's not going to complain at me about different formatted quotes versus double quotes. So if we save that, we didn't change our condition, so we should see that same string get printed out. Let's go back up here, flip this back to false. And now we should see I am not the Primeagen. So that's a simple if-else block. Where am I? Where did I go? Here we go. Okay, so that's an if-else block. Let's do a quick little chat about loops. I'm just going to get rid of that. That was a little visual block mode. Just got rid of all those lines. Now we can use a while loop. So we can say like while I am prime, which is again just our condition, we can do something and end it. We get inside of that block, which is the body of our while loop. So let's just do something, I don't know, something gross, something we'd probably never do in a real piece of code, but that's fine. This I am adding to an existing variable, an existing number, but unfortunately, there's no plus plus or plus equals operators, which is a huge bummer. So we got to do it the long way, where we do our number equals our number plus 1. And let's just print that out just to see some stuff happen. This condition is still false, so we would actually never enter that while loop. Let's get rid of that. Let's make that true. So now that condition is true, and we can enter this loop. So let's run via Lua, hello Lua, and it's going to do a bunch of stuff. So it's just infinite looping inside of there. I can control C out of there, and we see that the Lua interpreter is going to basically throw the stack where it's like, oh, I got interrupted. Here's the traceback where I was inside of a print. Cool. So that's the basics of a while loop. We don't want to do that forever. Let's get rid of that real quick. Let's go back to tables, because tables are super, super important. People in previous talks have been talking about like, oh, can pass a table to a plugin or some configurations to a plugin or something. Most of the times, those things that you're passing down to plugins or between Lua scripts and things are just tables, and sometimes tables of tables and tables of tables of tables and so on and so forth. Tables are really powerful, but also sometimes confusing because of how composable they can be. So let's explore that to see maybe some of the gotchas inside of there. So we can just declare a variable t, curly brace, and we'll just do the same sort of thing, a, b, c. If we print this, we're going to see something similar where it's just going to give us the memory address of that data structure it knows about in memory. That's just some pointer to the thing. So why don't we write a function? A function that we can actually print the keys and values of the table just to see it with our eyes. This is probably something that is maybe unnecessary because there's definitely libraries and things. I think Lua Rocks is one of those things that just gives you like all these Lua functions you would never need to write again. But for the sake of this talk, let's do a function. So we can declare a function with local function, which is at the scope of this script. We got to give it a name. We're going to call this print table with the braces like that. And then we end it. So that tells us, okay, this is the block of my function. And then if we were to call it, we would just come down here and print table. Very cool. So that's an empty function that does nothing. We want to give this this function an argument, so we can just call this table. And that's really it. It's not a like strongly typed language in the sense that, maybe in Go or something you would say like, oh, this is going to be, I don't know, a map of blah, 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 giving it its type. All we're saying here is this is the variable name, the name of the argument that we're passing in, and that's it. So that's another footgun is if you're writing these functions, you might need to do some checking, do some error handling inside of that. So let's do something I love, which is the for key value in pairs. This is very similar to maybe the for range loop inside of Go. There's a lot of ideas that seem to have been, I don't know, kind of traded all over the place with stuff. So now we can print our key value of our table. And then this function call, we actually need to pass in our argument. So let's pass in t. And now we can Lua, hello Lua. there we see kind of the fully composed table, which would be 1 is associated with A, 2B, 3C, so on and so forth. Again, those indexes start at 1. Let's do something interesting here. Let's give A different key. So we could say like my key or something is equal to A. Okay, throw your guesses in the chat. What do we think this is actually going to look like? So if we do hello Lua again, okay, so it printed our table address. That was that previous print. I'm just going to get rid of that right there. Then 1 is associated with B, 2 is C, and then my key is A. And we could actually access that individually, like print t.myKey, and we should see A just printed out at the end there, exactly like that. So it gets a little wonky when now the first element in the table that doesn't have a key assigned to it verbosely, which is B right here. B is the first one here that doesn't have something explicitly said. It's the one that's going to start with the index 1, and then C gets 2, and so on and so forth. It gets even crazier. We could even give it another table where we say Z and X or something. Come down here, and if we print that, well, now it's just going to say, oh, okay, at index 3, I have another table I need to know about. My function actually isn't going any deeper than the first level of tables. And this may seem kind of gross, but this is actually what gives Lua a lot of its flexibility, a lot of its power, where you can emulate full-on object-oriented programming just by doing tables within tables and different composed options inside of your elements you might be passing around and stuff. But I also call this a pretty big foot gun, where you have to be aware of these things happening kind of inside of Lua's data structure, which is the table and the way it works. So cool. That was that chunk. Let's move on back to my slide. So yes, Lua is, let me get out of the way for a second. Lua is a powerful, efficient, lightweight, embeddable scripting language. It supports procedural programming, object-oriented programming, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's super, super powerful. It's super, super great. And this chunk right here, the Lua reference manual, I'll come over here. Wow, my chair's in the way. The Lua reference manual is like a single PDF, and you could really just read the entire reference manual in a single sitting. It's that powerful. It's that simple, and I like it a lot. But beware the foot guns. Let's dive a little bit deeper into what that means for Lua NeoVim configurations. Like some people have said already in the conference, a lot of us have moved to just like a full-on Lua NeoVim configuration. And it's a little different. Like there's definitely some nuances that you need to be aware of. You can use Lua scripts really for your entire configuration, all the way from your init.lua down to your plugins, down to how you configure options, how you configure global options, et cetera, et cetera. One of the first talks had some really good discussions around the Vim API that exists within Lua, which is what we're going to talk about, because really in the end, we all just want to be a hacker man like Prime. So let's talk about using the Vim API in Lua. All right, let me clean up some of this junk real quick. I want to exit this. Let's head into my .config NVim. This is where I have my Lua configuration for my entire NVim stuff. So if we look at init.lua, this is the entry point. This is the starting place for most of us where NeoVim is going to look to start loading your configuration, start loading your plugins, start actually modifying the editor and start doing stuff with it. So init.lua is where most of us, it's going to happen inside of .config/nvim. Now, this I think is something that I've heard from people in the community that can be kind of confusing, is like, where the heck is NeoVim even looking to start loading stuff, start loading Lua, start looking for Vimscript or whatever? There's always help, runtime path. This is huge. So this one right there, xdg config home/nvim, that's like the first one it's going to look in. That's my .config/nvim, and then it looks for an init.lua to start actually loading stuff. So help runtime path is huge. It's like the godsend if you're ever confused, like where's stuff even being loaded from? These are all the paths. These are all the paths. Okay, so that is super important to know about. I'm actually going to comment out a few option things that I have, like so. And I'm actually going to reload Vim. Okay, it shut down some stuff. It changed some stuff because I actually want to show that inline here happening in the flesh, doing it live. So let's configure an option. So we have a global variable, Vim, that is sort of given to us by the engine. It's things that the embedded Lua engine knows about and things that APIs essentially that we get automatically through our Lua scripts to start changing some stuff, to start changing some behaviors. So what I want to do is vim.o for options. And it's already knowing about a bunch of this stuff from my LSP right here, that it's loading up some stuff from the environment. So one of the options I want to set is relative number. Thank you, LSP, for knowing about that. And we're going to set that to true. Whoops. See, I'm trying to type JK, 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 hit exit, but I have that turned off. So we're going to save and quit, vim init.lua. And now on that left side, we see the relative numbers. On that left side, it's trying to load a plugin as well. But this now option is set for relative numbers true. Let's go ahead and set that map, that key mapping that I like. So I'm going to do vim.api.nvim set key map. Yeah. And then this is very similar to how you would set a key map in Vimscript. It's sort of a similar sized API. I like this in insert mode. That's the I. And then I want to remap JK to escape. And that looks like that. And then this expects a table. So here's that whole discussion about tables where it expects a no remap. So it expects this key to be no remap, and then we can give it a value of true. And that looks fine. I have an extra thing somewhere. Oh, whoops, yes, I do. Like that. Okay, and that's closing that brace like that. Let's close, go back in here. Oh, yikes. What did I do? What did I do? Live coding. It's a good time. That's why I have notes. NVim, set key map, insert mode, JK. What did I do? That's okay. You know what? I'm just going to comment that out because I'm not going to be able to do that live. Get this back in here, inside of here. And you know what? We could even look inside of my options because I think I had this somewhere. This is probably a fraught effort. Whatever. That's fine. Save and quit. Init Lua. It's back. So if I'm in insert mode and I hit JK, we're back. JK. So that is vim.api. I'll write that again, .api. This is huge. Vim.api is really kind of the entry point to how we can change and configure a lot of the things within NeoVim itself. You can almost think of this as if you were modifying an API on like a web server or something. You might be like sending some different things onto that web server and stuff. Okay, we're running a little short on time, so I'm going to speed through a bunch of the rest of these. I'm actually going to skip a few things just because they actually were already talked about from a bunch of stuff. So let me go back to my slides from other people. But my Vimscript, what about my Vimscript? Well, funny enough, there are actually APIs that NVim gives us to execute Vimscript from our Lua. It's like, yeah, I mean, it goes deeper for real. So if we come back over here, we can take a look at one of those. We can do vim.api, .nvim eval. That's a really big one, nvim eval. So we can give it some chunk of Vimscript. Let's just give it like a data structure, 1, 2, 3. That is just a list inside of Vimscript. If we print that, what is that going to look like? Go back into our Vim init Lua since it was executing from there. And look, if we look like down there kind of in the bottom left, you can see it printed out the address of a table. What nvim eval is doing is it's taking that list, that Vimscript list inside of that evaluation, it's turning it into a Lua table, and then we're printing out the address of that. We can actually do something else, which is really nice. I had mentioned that, that print table function that we wrote, it's a bit redundant because we actually have a vim.inspect, which can take a table or some evaluation from Lua and where am I? Yikes. And it can actually just print out what, the whole table looks like. So let's save and quit that. Oh, yikes. Again, what did I do this time? Vim inspect. Oh, I didn't spell inspect right. If there's one thing you should know about me, it's that I cannot spell. But that's fine because we got it eventually. So we see down there in the bottom left, we have 1, 2, 3. That's our table that we are building from some Vimscript. Funny enough, it actually goes a little deeper. We have Lua built into NeoVim, but for some reason, some people might want to execute some Lua from their Vimscript. It is possible. It is possible. So one thing we can do is we're really going the opposite direction this time, and I think I might actually punt on this a little bit since I'm running out of time. We can do some, what will this actually look like? We can do Lua eval from our Vimscript. So just imagine for a hot second, just imagine that this is all Vimscript going forward for the sake of time. We could do Lua eval, where we would pass in some Lua, and then the Vimscript would be able to evaluate that and turn it into Vimscript data structures and things. We could actually access entire APIs from Lua within Vimscript, where we would do like a call to v lua.print or something, and this could really be any API off of Lua that we get in the Vimscript. This is the point where all these things sort of start becoming inception mode, where it's like, okay, I want to execute some Lua from my Vimscript, which is going to be evaluated in NeoVim, which has a Lua engine in it, and so on and so forth. To really simplify a lot of this, just use Lua. It's great, it's fast, it's efficient, it's embedded in NeoVim directly, and it's, in my opinion, much easier to use compared to Vimscript. All right, back to my slides. Lua for plugins has sort of already been discussed at length during the conference here, but I think it's important to note just like the things that have changed recently. It's a really powerful way to build and configure your plugins. We went at length discussing tables in Lua, and I think that's very intentional because anybody who's tried to configure a plugin within NeoVim that is a Lua plugin has had to use a table, and sometimes tables within tables, sometimes tables within tables within tables, and so on and so forth. And it can get kind of gross, but it's a very, very powerful way to do it. I hope in the future it continues to be more extensible and maybe some more adoption continues within Lua so that we can have better, I guess, methodologies across the community for doing all this. Next steps and some resources that I do want to mention. This is the Lua reference manual. Again, it's super, super short. You can really go through it pretty much in an entire sitting. Highly recommended, excellent resource. The NVim Lua docs themselves are amazing. And if I get out of here, I mean, they are just like very big and long, amazing. Anything that you need to know about the Lua interface in NVim, it's up in here. It's very searchable. It's very nice, but maybe not so much a thing you can just sit down and read. Another resource I want to mention is the NVim Lua guide on GitHub by this user, NanoTree. Delicious, amazing. This thing is really, really good for getting started with Lua in NeoVim. It talks about your init.lua. It talks about the runtime path. I stole this screenshot from this repo. It's incredible. So if you are curious and want to maybe have more kind of a blog style post about using Lua in NeoVim, this is the one. This is the one. Those are those links. Take a screenshot real quick. 3, 2, 1, if you want them. And that's pretty much it for me. You can find me across the interwebs at johncodes.com, on YouTube, Twitter, GitHub. Send me an email. I like getting emails from people. So yeah.
Come on,
And
you
that's
can
it.
get it. You can get it.
Oh,
you
yikes.
get him. You get him.
Oh,
I got him.
What the heck? Are we live?
Oh,
Who did that?
forgot that they're green.
ABD?
They're green. You can't even see what they are.
Hey, thanks, John. That was an awesome talk.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for eating some grapes.
No problem.
No problem.
Clearly paying attention.
Well, we did. We
Yeah.
learned about the basics of Lua, and you shout out Nano T Guide, which is also my favorite resource to send people to learn about getting started with NeoVim and Lua. So,
Yeah,
thanks,
it's
John.
incredible. Yeah, of course.